Hi, my name's Rob. I've started doing this live stream so I can show you the kind of thing that I look for when I'm doing an accessibility test on an app. I hope there is something here that is used to you that you can maybe use on your own apps. But this app that I'm going to look at today is called Figurecase. It's by Simon Nicol. It's available on the App Store, and I understand lets you lets you keep track of figures that you have for Games Workshop games. I've not actually had a look at the app yet. I decided I wanted to kind of come in here fresh and see what I can find. So if there is anything that you want to know a little bit more about, anything that you want me to go back and cover again, just stick it in the chat and I'll try and give you an answer on that. There's a few things that I'm going to look at in the app. I'm going to check out VoiceOver first of all. The reason I'm going to check out VoiceOver is because that uses a lot more of the accessibility tree than most of the other assistive technologies. And so if it works well with VoiceOver, then it's generally going to work pretty well with most other assistive technologies. So I'm going to give that one a go first. I'll try out the app with some different text sizes, and I'll maybe give VoiceOver a try and maybe try some contrast ratio checking as well, depending on what I can find. We'll kind of see how it goes and see what I think I need to take a look at. So yeah, just stick it in the chat if you've got any questions, and we'll cover a few things in the app. I'm just going to take my face off screen because otherwise you're just going to see the top of my head for the whole thing because I'll be looking down at the screen. So you're not going to want to see that. Maybe in future live streams, I might see if I can sort out a camera that faces down onto the phone screen so that you can see what gestures I'm making, which might make it a little bit easier. But for now, I'm just going to talk you through, give you a bit of commentary. You might get a bit of me talking over VoiceOver and vice versa every now and then. I'll try and keep that to a minimum as much as possible so you can understand what's going on. Okay.
VoiceOver on. Figurecase. Figurecase. Info. Circle. Button. Possibly. Info.
Okay. So I'm guessing that this app is made in SwiftUI because it's given me some information about this icon here, which looks to me like an SF Symbols image. And so it's telling me a bit of information about what it thinks the SF Symbols image is. And actually, probably we should have an accessibility label on there that just says something like info.
Info. Circle. Button. Possibly. Info.
You can actually see as well, if you have a look at the caption on the bottom, the first thing it says is info.circle.
Info. Circle.
Info.circle
Button.
there.
Possibly. Info. Screen curtain off. Screen
So
curtain
that
off.
is just reading out the file name of the image essentially. So not the most helpful thing, but it's not terrible. I mean, someone who can't see the screen is going to know what that means.
Plus. Circle. Fill. Button. Possibly. Add.
So again, same thing with this one, just needs an accessibility label adding to that.
Collections. Heading. Create collection. Create collection. Collections. Heading. Info. Empty list. Actions of empty list. Create collection. Info. Circle. Button. Possibly. Close. Button. Contact. Heading. Feedback at Figureasa. App. Button. Review on the App Store. Button. Recruit your friends. Button. Twitter. At Figureasa. Button. Instagram. Figureasa. App. Button. Created by. At @simonical_dev. Button. Web. Figureasa. App. Button. Every feedback is appreciated. Let me know what's on your mind or just say hi.
Okay, so these all seem okay. I'm guessing that these are all web links, so I'm not going to go click on all of them. but they all seem okay to me. I'm just going to double check the contrast of this text. I think it's probably okay. Okay, maybe not. This is not completely accurate. Yeah, it's difficult to say on that just because it's not picking up everything. But I'm not quite sure if that text is going to be quite high enough contrast ratio. So with contrast ratios for text, it really needs to be, I would say, at least one. That will give us the details here. 4.5 to 1 is really kind of the minimum that you'd need for text. You can go a bit higher, 7 to 1, if you want to make sure that it's definitely as accessible as possible. But yeah, I would say 4.5 to 1 is going to be fine for most apps. This text here is just on the edge, I think. Might check this green as well. I think that's probably okay again, but okay. Oh, it was off on the green. So I'm just going to get rid of the screen
button
because the color has gone a little bit weird.
Circle. Close.
Don't know what's going
button.
on with that. So this, I would probably want to check against the actual color values of this green text and this grey text at the bottom here, just to see if they do match 4.5 to 1, because I'm not convinced they're going to be quite high enough. That just means for then people with low vision, anything with a low contrast ratio is going to blend into the background a little bit, and also people with colour blindness will sometimes not be able to see this colour quite so well, so that will blend into the background a little bit as well for people who are struggle to see colours quite so well. So I'd probably just double check those.
Info plus circle text field is editing factional gain insertion point at start.
Okay.
Add collection. Close button. Check mark. Circle fill dimmed button possibly tick. Text field is editing factional gain character mode insertion point at start.
This is going to show up my knowledge here. I don't really know anything much about Games Workshop, unfortunately. It used to work like just down the road from it. I know people who work there, have friends who play it, but I know that Warhammer's a thing, right? So I'm just going to put in Warhammer.
Cap W.
Oh.
Alert. Not now. Cap W. Cap A R R H A M E R R. Check mark. Circle. Fill. Button. Possibly. Tick. Collections. Back button. Plus. Circle. Ellipsis. Warhammer. Button. Heading. Create model. Add notes. Heading. Add notes. Heading. Text field. Is editing. Character mode. Insertion point at start. Cap N O T T E E. Check mark. Circle. Possibly. Collections. Back button. Ellipsis. Warhammer. Edit. Button. Delete. Button. Edit. Warhammer. Cancel. Collections. Back button.
Okay, so I'm going to turn voiceover off for a second.
Alert. Accessibility. Select voiceover off.
So there's one thing that I want to try on this screen as well, which is not a voiceover thing. So I'm just going to give this a quick try, but I noticed there are some questions in the chat as well, so let me just have a look. Do you think, how do you think it would be best way of handling the create collection floating tip with VoiceOver. Yeah, I'm just going to have another look at that actually, so I will come to that one in a second. Audit in Xcode's accessibility inspector may help find the contrast is enough even for third-party apps. Yeah, I think you can run an accessibility audit in Xcode against a third-party app because it will run it against whatever's on screen at the moment. I don't have Xcode up on this at the moment on this machine, yeah, I'm pretty sure you can do that actually. Now this floating tip that Daniel mentions, I just want to check this with another accessibility feature. Perfect. So for me personally, I have a balance condition, which it affects me being able to just stand up, basically. It sometimes can make me dizzy if there's kind of repeated movement or fast movement or something like that. To me, this little create model button, kind of the little floating thing here, which was bouncing previously, that was starting to make me feel a little bit dizzy just by its kind of repeated movement all the time. And so the ability to turn that off with reduce motion, which is something I would normally have on my phone personally, that makes a big difference. So that's really great that that has been done on this app. So we can see there with reduce motion off, it started bubbling again. Let's put VoiceOver back on here.
VoiceOver on. Figure case. Collections. Node. Node. Create model. Button.
I think that's what kind of triggers me the most, to be honest. The fact that there's something on top that's not moving now is kind of...
Warhammer. Heading. Create mod. Node. Create mod. Warhammer. Ellipsis. Plus. Circle. Fill. Button. Possibly. Add.
Yeah, so this, as Daniel kind of points out...
Node. Node. Create model. Button.
Create model, although kind of visually, we can obviously see what that is there for, because it's bouncing with an arrow pointing up towards the button. Then if you can't see the screen...
Screen curtain on. Plus. Circle. Fill. Button. Possibly. Add.
So this is the add button.
Ellipsis. Circle. Fill. Button. Plus. Collections. Plus. Circle. Fill. Button. Possibly. Add.
You can hear that the hint is no way kind of either side of it. So we'd have to swipe
Ellipsis.
it away.
Warhammer. Create model. Button.
So it then says create model, but
Node.
there's nothing...
Heading. Create model. Button.
There's nothing when you can't see the screen to sort of suggest what that reference is.
Close. Button.
Okay, so it is a button as well on its own, so that kind of works still, I think.
Collections. Back button. Screen curtain off.
So I think this kind of floating
heading, create model button.
Create model text works because it is a button as well. Ideally, probably it might be linked to the plus button. So I think maybe what I might do is I might make this create model text possibly just not available to accessibility at all, and just set the text
plus,
this button say
circle,
create model.
Fill button, possibly add.
I think that would probably make it a bit more meaningful then.
Ellipsis, circle, fill button. Warhammer.
Well, this looked like a slightly different color background, so I wanted to just double check this again. Okay, sometimes color contrast analyzer does this. Yeah, because it's a slightly different shade of grey here, a slightly darker shade of grey. So again, that green is not high enough contrast ratio. Yeah, that red isn't either, by the looks of it. So I think some of the colors schemes on this app probably needs a closer look.
Cancel. But collections. Back node. Head node. Create model. Warhammer. Create node. Heading.
I'm not sure I really like how the create model little floating thing there goes over the note row in this table as well. So I might even consider if we know VoiceOver is enabled, I might even just hide that. Might be a good option.
Plus. Circle. Text field. Is editing. Name. CapM. CapM. O. D. D. E. E. L. L. Checkmark. Circle. Warhammer. Back button. Ellipsis. Circle. Fill. Button. Model. Cancel. 0. Model. Add notes. Head. Plus. Add notes. Heading. Text field. CapN. CapN. O. O. T. T. E. E. Checkmark. Circle. Note. Heading. Plus. Circle. Fill. But. Unassembled. 0. Text field. Chevron. Down. Circle. Assembled. 0. Text field. Chevron. Down. Painted. 0. Text field. 0. 0. Plus. Circle. Fill. Button. Possibly. Add. Unassembled. Plus. Plus. Circle. Unassembled. 1. Text field. Chevron. Down. Circle. Chevron. Down. Circle. Fill. Assembled. 0. Text field. Text field. Chevron. Text. Unassembled. Plus. Note. Plus. Unassembled. Text. Chevron. Assembled. 1. Chevron. Painted. 0. 1. Done. Button.
Okay.
Painted.
So there are a few things I think on this screen that I would probably have a look at. This text field, I
0.
think, is
text field.
kind of the first
Double
one.
tap to edit.
So that's kind of obvious. Like if you can't see the screen straight away, it's text field, right? You've got a number in there and you can edit it. So I can double tap on that to bring up the keyboard.
Text field is editing. Delete. 2. 2.
So I can enter a number. So that's simple enough.
Done. Button. Painted.
The thing
2.
I think
text field.
I would take another look at on this.
Double tap to edit.
When we're
text
editing,
field is editing. 2.
Got these,
character mode. Insertion point at end.
We've got the plus and minus on the left and right.
Text field. Text field. Text field. Text field. Chevron. Text text no plus text field is editing. 2. Character mode. Insertion point at end. Speech off.
I can't type. I can't tap either of the plus or minus button with VoiceOver on. So I think maybe they would need some adjustment to maybe move them outside of the text field, perhaps. Visually, they can still appear as if they're in the text field, but in terms of the actual layout, make them separate outside. I'm not quite sure why I wouldn't be able to access those, but it does mean that it means as a VoiceOver user, you then have to type rather than just tapping on those buttons. There's quite a lot of stuff that if you can't see the screen on this screen, then it's not really going to be very obvious exactly what everything is there for and what it's doing. So if I go back here,
speech on. No plus circle fill button possibly add.
So what does this plus button do? I think is a good question. Like, we know it's a plus, we know it's going to add something, but what's it going to add? We've got lots of add buttons in this app, and they're kind of okay because they all sort of say add, but there's no indication as to what they're adding. So I would maybe want to make this a little bit clearer, maybe add a an accessibility label that just disambiguates that this is adding an unassembled model to your collection.
Unassembled.
And then this row here, we
Plus,
know.
Unassembled text field is editing. 2. Character mode. Insertion point at end.
I would probably group this text field together with the unassembled label so that VoiceOver will read 2 unassembled. So obviously here, visually, we can see that there are 2 unassembled, but if I turn the screen off.
Screen curtain on. Chevron. Down. Assembled. 1. Text assembled.
So you can see it says assembled, but how many are assembled, right? You've got no idea.
Unassembled.
And you don't know how many are unassembled. You have to swipe.
Text field is editing. 2. Character mode. Insertion point at end.
And there's necessarily a lot going on there on that text field to tell you that it's text field and what type of text field, what it's doing, and what you can do with it. So you kind of need all that extra stuff. That's given to you by iOS. But if all I want to know is just how many I've got, then it's kind of quite a long-winded way of knowing that.
Screen curtain off. Chevron. Down. Circle. Fill. Button. Possibly. Down arrow.
And this chevron again just needs a label just to explain what that means, what's going to happen if we type on that, I think. Just a quick label. If you want to add a bit more context, you can always add an accessibility hint to that, but probably just a 1 or 2 word accessibility label to that would help.
As 1. Chev. Painted. 0. 3.
This total at the bottom, again, let me get rid of the keyboard.
Done. Button.
It's
painted.
It's kind
Speech
of
off.
Obvious, like visually, that 3 at the bottom means we got 3 total models. But again, if you're accessing this just with VoiceOver and not seeing the screen, like what does that 3 mean? So I'd maybe just add a total label in front of the number there just to disambiguate that. And then I think there was one other thing. Yeah, this button here.
Speech on. Plus. Circle. Fill. Chevron. Down. Circle. Fill. Button. Chevron. Down. Circle. Fill.
So I just kind of activated those 2 buttons just to show that you can obviously see what's happening. You know, if you tap on that plus, it adds 1 to unassembled. If you tap on the chevron, it adds takes 1 from unassembled and adds it into assembled. So you can see visually what's happening there, and that makes complete sense. But then if you, again, can't see what's on the screen, you're not really going to know what's happening there. So I would probably want some kind of VoiceOver announcement. You can post announcements to VoiceOver and make it just say stuff when something happens. I would probably do that on that button, just to say that you've added, you know, when you tap the plus, just say something like 2 unassembled straight after it, just so that we know exactly what's happened. Because, again...
Screen curtain on. Speech off. Speech on. Plus. Circle. Fill. Button. Possibly. Add.
So even if that button says, like, add unassembled.
Plus. Circle. Fill.
So how many unassembled do I have now that I've got that, now that I've added that? It's just not very obvious.
Screen curtain off.
I think I would also sorry, my air server that I'm using keeps crashing. I think it's something to do with the way that I'm hijacking the audio. I also, I think, want to check some of the contrast ratios here. Yeah, they look okay to me. I think then that is most of this app that I've taken a look at. Oh, this screen has changed actually. Let me.
VoiceOver on. Figure case. Collections. Back button. Plus. Model. 5. Action. Model. 5. Note. Heading. Model. 5.
So this table row here, where we've got the nice graph at the bottom, it's a nice little feature there that kind of visually gives us a really quick example of what status all of our models are in. I'd maybe just want to add an audio version of that. That can be an extra swipe, absolutely. So
Note.
where it says
Model.
models
5.
5, and then
Model.
another
5.
swipe, and then that could just say like to unbuilt to built 3 ready or whatever. That would make it a nice little change there, I think.
Speech off.
Okay, so let's see. Daniel says something in the chat again. So, could making the text field adjustable also be a good approach in this case for incrementing, decrementing the value? Or do you think it would be confusing? Users may want to change typing mode instead. Yeah, so I think Daniel's kind of, to be honest, expressed what I was trying to explain a lot better than I did. So the you can with the accessibility API, we're using a trait, set something to adjustable, and then that will let VoiceOver users swipe up or down to increment or decrement the value. And that would be essentially the VoiceOver equivalent of the plus and minus buttons on that text field. And that would probably be a much nicer, much simpler way of doing it. I think personally, I would still probably want to give the option to type as well, just because it's then easier to type in a larger number rather than just having to increment or decrement by 1 every time. But yeah, I think that would be a good addition. I should probably say with all of these suggestions, you really, if you want to make something properly accessible, there's no substitute for actually testing with someone who uses VoiceOver or uses assistive technology regularly, because they are going to know far better than anyone like you or I that has just kind of worked as a dev and tried a few things out. They're going to know far better as to what actually worked well for them. So that's the kind of thing like that where I think, as Daniel suggests, it could be a better option. Could also be more confusing. So it's worthwhile just trying that out with someone who uses VoiceOver if you can, just to see what they think works best. Show names. Okay, so this is voice control now. I'm just checking that everything looks okay. So again, the buttons that we've got here are all what looks like FS symbols to me, and we're just using the standard FF symbol name. So that's not really going to work for voice control because someone would have to say plus circle fill. So tap plus circle fill. Tap plus circle fill. Yeah, so it does work, but you kind of have to say the image name rather than anything meaningful, so not ideal. Show names. Show names. Okay. I think that's probably about everything that I wanted to check. The app looks not bad from what I can tell in terms of accessibility. Simon did say that he hadn't really tried anything with accessibility so far, and so for not having done anything explicit, it's not bad. The text size seems to work pretty well. I assumed with it being, as far as I can tell, being SwiftUI, that would probably work pretty well, just because SwiftUI works pretty well with that kind of stuff anyway. I think the main thing for me is probably trying to figure something out on this screen just to make it a bit more meaningful, add a bit more context to people who can't see what's on the screen or can't see what's on the screen very well, and using VoiceOver. That would just help make that screen a bit more meaningful, and all of the buttons really need accessibility labels adding to them rather than just using the SwiftUI provided SF symbol name. But altogether, it's not a bad start, but there's definitely some changes that could be made. So I hope, Simon, that was useful to you, and I didn't kind of it's not SwiftUI, he says. Okay, I assumed it was, just by some of the accessibility kind of features on there. They look like SwiftUI. Okay, well, either way, it's a nice start. I hope it was useful to you, Simon, and I hope you can make it a bit more accessible in future. I hope you kind of learned something from there. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please let me know if anything kind of didn't work out so well, if you wanted a bit more detail on anything, and maybe going forwards we'll kind of see how that works. But thanks very much for tuning in.